Hi, all you future sociologists. We're getting really close to the end of the semester and we're getting really close to the end of our content, but this lecture is the first one where we will really introduce way more in depth than we've talked about it before, religion as a social institution. I have up here written religion is a social institution because that's correct. Religion is a social institution just like family is, just like marriage is, just like the economy, just like the education system, government, mass media, telecommunications, etc. I could go on, as you know, but we're going to talk about religion as a social institution. And remember, the basic definition for social institutions, if you don't have that at the front of your mind when I'm talking about this, stop me. I don't care what kind of crazy face I'm making. When you stop me, look back in your notes, get that definition of social institution, because if you don't know what that is, then you're not going to fully understand this conversation we are about to have about religion being one of those. So a social institution is a macro scale part of the social structure that we have in any society. We're going to talk about US society a whole lot because, hey, that's where we are. But any society anywhere, any culture anywhere has social institutions. They are macro scale parts of the social structure, meaning they exist way above the individual. They establish norms for society. They make sure that the needs for the entire population of society are met. And so social institutions, it has a particular definition. You need to know that in order to fully understand these conversations that we're having here at the end of our semester. Okay, so religion is a social institution because it provides for basic needs that any population where religion exists, and it exists everywhere, it fills a need in that population. So let's look at the characteristics of religion. I have them written down here as bullet points. And yes, if I ask you for a sociological definition of religion, then I would need to see from you all of these ideas. This idea, religion is a social institution, in addition to every one of these bullet points that we're about to go over. You need to put this into 2 or 3 sentences to explain what religion is from a sociological standpoint in order to earn points in sociology. So, religion is a social institution that essentially is a belief system. It's a unifying set of beliefs, and communities of people unite around those beliefs. Now listen to how general I'm being right now. I know we're here in the Bible Belt in the United States, and so there are very specific beliefs that are coming to your mind in most cases, whether you yourself are a believer or whether you yourself rebel against those beliefs. We know in general a certain set of beliefs that are in the belief system that we use in the Bible Belt of the United States, and it unites us knowing about that belief system, agreeing with it, coming together as a community to agree with it, or even rebelling against it, is a form of unification around that belief system. Every religion everywhere is a belief system, and communities of believers unite around that agreed upon belief system. In sociology, we are not going to talk about, at least not in this introductory class, what the specific beliefs are, or which ones are best or not. We don't argue about that. This is not a controversial topic in our class. Religion is a belief system. It unites people, and the beliefs that it unites people around cover supernatural ideas. So, in other words, not natural ideas. There are lots of natural ideas in our culture. There's lots of natural ideas in our system of norms that answer questions for us. Here's a major need that religion fills. As a social institution, religion has to fill a need for the population of people who unite around it. And here's a major need that religion fills in the mind of humanity. So, nature, science, empirical evidence answers a ton of questions about life. A ton of questions about the universe, a ton of questions about the ecosystem, a ton of questions about anything that you want to ask in a science classroom. You can probably set up some kind of empirical experimental situation to answer natural ideas in a science classroom or a science laboratory or in science in general. So there's tons of natural ideas out there that answer questions about mysterious things. Like, we can draw a cell and all the different parts of a cell because science can give us that electron microscope or maybe you don't even need an electron microscope to see it, but you can see that individual cell, those building blocks of our bodies. Well, that's not something that we can know without scientific knowledge, right? Germ theory, that's not something we can know without scientific knowledge. How does coronavirus spread? That's not something we can know without scientific knowledge, because it's not something as individuals we can observe and see. But science can answer those questions for us. There are some questions, though, that science has yet to be able to answer. So this phrase that I have here, that this belief system that unites people around that belief regarding supernatural ideas that gives meaning to life. What this means here is there are certain questions that science cannot answer yet, at least not with good empirical evidence. So for instance, here's one of those questions. I know from science and forensics what happens to this body that I'm walking around in. But when I say me, sometimes I'm referring to my body, but I'm also referring to my intellect. I'm referring to my soul, my spirit, my gut feelings, my heart, my intuition. I'm referring to all of those intangible aspects of myself when I'm talking about me. It's not just this physical covering that is me. And so a lot of people want to know, well, when a person is dead, the body's there, and forensically I know what is happening to that body, but where is the me from that person? Where is that heart and soul and mind? All of those things that are intangible parts of our existence and our concept of self. What happens to that? That aspect of humanity. And so this is a question, this is a supernatural kind of idea because we can't measure soul, we can't measure spirit, we can't measure afterlife. And so we say afterlife because this is a supernatural idea that we can't measure. It's like in geography, we can't make a map to go to the enlightenment zone or go to a place called heaven or go to a place called nirvana. We can't do those things as far as scientific answers. And so religions focus on those kinds of unanswerable questions that empirical science can't answer for us, and it gives meaning to life. So the belief system unites people around that belief system, but the beliefs cover supernatural ideas, not typically natural ideas, not in general do they typically cover natural ideas. And those beliefs, the meaning to life, provides guidelines for behavior. And so we have another vocabulary word that I can write on the board here, norms. Norms are macro level guidelines for behavior that people in a society follow. So up here, if you do not believe in the belief system that many, many people in the Bible Belt do, still, because you're in the Bible Belt and because that's the dominant ideology, that dominant belief system, it affects our daily lives. Like Saturday and Sunday being considered the weekend instead of Friday and Saturday like it is in Saudi Arabia. So, supernatural ideas answer questions that science can't provide answers for, but the guidelines for behavior are much more commonplace, much more everyday life. This meaning to life thing, wanting to go someplace in an afterlife, that belief, wanting to live in a way that I will be able to go to or have this experience in my afterlife, provides daily guidelines for behavior. That all norms, from folkways, mores to laws, Religion is a social institution that provides the framework for the ways the laws are going to be written by the governments in the places where people live around the world. Religion is the belief system that provides guidelines of behavior for our folkways. When we think about politeness and chivalry, right? Like the behavior between males and females where, you want a male to open a door for you or something. This male servant to female kind of elevation idea of a female needing to be catered to, it comes from a belief system in Christianity, for instance. The specialness of female as the childbearer. So guidelines for behavior go from folkways, mores, norms. We talked about marriage last week and cohabitation. Mores like being faithful to someone in a marriage, being having marital fidelity. Those kinds of norms are required in our society of everybody, regardless of whether you follow a Christian belief system or not. It's an assumption of your behavior, or you're considered deviant if you go against that norm. So these guidelines for behavior, this is about everyday life. But you're motivated to do these everyday life behaviors because of these supernatural ideas that, hey, there's an afterlife and there are rules I need to follow in order to get to that afterlife. And so I better follow these rules and make it a part of my everyday life in order so that when my life ends, I will continue based on the belief system of where my community believes that we're going to end up together and the experiences we're going to have together. So this guidelines for behavior thing is about common everyday behaviors all the way up to mores, which are about morality, and laws, which are based on folkways or mores within the guidelines for behavior that religion establishes in a society. Every religion also has rituals and symbols that go with it. So a symbol might be a Star of David or a cross or a dove or the Quran or the Bible. Any of those kinds of things might be symbols, and rituals would be things like hymns, singing, chanting, prayers. A lot of times when we were talking about marriage, I said we were going to leave religion out of it, but religion is one of those things that kind of takes over marriage and makes it a ritual that follows marriage. Burial. So this meaning to life, where am I going to go after life? And when I say where am I going to go, I know this body's not going with me. So I'm talking about the inner things, the gut and the heart and the soul and the mind, those inner things that are all over the insides of this body. But we have rituals for how we should prepare the body that's left behind. We have rituals for how we should inter that body that is left behind. And all of these things are guidelines for behavior, regardless of whether you are Christian in this Christian country of ours. The rituals that you follow with marriage have a connection to the Christian faith. The rituals that you follow with burial have a connection to the Christian faith. Baptisms are rituals, confirmations are rituals, quinceañeras are religious rituals. All of these things are guided by the dominant religion of the culture where you live. So religion is a social institution. When we talk about it in sociology, it is not at all controversial. So don't write your reaction paper about this is the belief system that you should do because this is the only way you're going to get to the afterlife and it says in this book that you must do the... I hear ya, just like you hear me. In sociology, we zoom away from what your individual belief system is that unites you with your community of believers, that gives you meaning for life, addresses supernatural ideas, provides guidelines for behavior, the rituals that are specific to you. We have to zoom out in this very introductory lesson about religion and make it extremely general, because not everybody all over the world has your belief system. Some belief systems have the motivation to go out and spread. They are universalizing religions. You want to go out and spread your religion, and that's part of the belief system. You want to take as many people to the afterlife with you as you can. And so there's another motivation as to why a lot of people can't zoom away from Christianity and look at, the broader, more macro scale view of religion in general in sociology, but I gotta get you to do that for me. So be really general with this concept of religion. We're going to look at the ways in which, first, we're going to look at the different kinds of supernatural ideas that go with religions, because there's lots of different types of religions around the world and throughout history. So we're going to look at some classifications of different type religions in our next video. And then we're going to look to see the way religion in particular is linked with social stratification, like we did with marriage, and the economy in general, and also how religion is linked with the way our government is set up and designed. Because religion, this belief system, well, see this one, how communities are united around the belief system. This is a really powerful kind of force. I'll sound mystical maybe when I say the word force, but this is a really powerful thing here. Once you buy into a belief system and you find your people who buy into that belief system too, it gets stronger. You get more stronger, more vehement, you get more faithful and devout. And so it's interesting. I think it's interesting. I hope it'll be interesting for you to see how governments around the world, countries in general, we'll use the United States, but countries in general kind of adopt rituals and symbols and guidelines for behavior. They kind of try to make the nation itself, the country itself, sacred, like make America great, right? So America in general is kind of referred to as some kind of supernatural thing, so to speak. And so we will look to see how this religious belief system that unites people is so unique to governmental systems and country, the concept of country and allegiance to a country, because people are very allegiant to their faith systems. That throughout time, your faith system is something that you will fight and die for. And so countries need you to be able to fight and die for them too. And so if they're set up kind of the same type of structure as religious ideology is, then people are more patriotic, for instance. People are more willing to fight and die, which is something that that countries need in order to stay alive, just like religions need that in order to stick around, to continue to unite people into communities of believers. Okay, so remember, any word that you heard me review, like norms or social institutions, go back and review that, please. And if you're going to write me a definition, a sociological definition of religion, I'm going to need to see all of these things in here, not just the bullet points that I wrote, but give me an explanation of what these bullet point things mean, okay? So that I know what you know. You got to tell me what you know. Okay, so I will see you again in our next video, where we're going to talk about some of the specific categories of supernatural beliefs that exist out there in the world, and learn more from an objective point of view about what religion is in the sociological point of view. See you next time.